everyone and welcome back to Camera West TV. Today we are going to talk about the new Panasonic S5. First up, let's talk about the handling of the camera. I have to say the grip on the camera felt really nice. It's large enough that I can hold the camera one-handed without worrying about dropping it. And that's good because I took this camera over to San Diego to see how it would perform, and I may have forgotten to grab a strap. So when the camera wasn't in my Shimoda X30 backpack, it was being held generally one-handed, just like this. The camera balanced really nicely with the 20 to 60mm kit lens. And throughout this video, you'll see photos from the 20 to 60, the 70 to 200 f4, and the Leica 50mm Summilux spherical using the M adapter L. Panasonic is touting this as a really small full-frame mirrorless camera. It's smaller than the GH5, and it's a lot smaller than the S1 or S1R. It even weighs less than the GH5. The Panasonic layout is a bit different when it comes to switching autofocus modes. It did take me a little bit to remember that the switch is on the back of the camera and not on the front. This isn't a bad thing as it's really easy to bring your thumb over and switch it over quickly. There are dedicated buttons on the top of the camera for white balance, ISO, exposure comp, and video record. This makes it really easy to make changes without having to dive into the menu system. And speaking of the video record button, it's really easy to locate with it being bright red. And if you push the button while in any of the photo modes, it'll swap over the display to the movie mode and start recording automatically. This can be really handy if you need to switch over in a hurry. Panasonic did provide this camera with some proper weather sealings, and if you're working in some harsher environments, you won't have to worry about your camera. They note that this is protected for splashes and dust. So Panasonic went with a 2.36 million dot OLED EVF, and it's quite good. While it's not the EVF that's in the higher end models, I really didn't have any complaints about it. It was bright enough and had enough detail for the shooting that I did. I'm happy to see that Panasonic went with a free angle 3-inch 1.84 million dot touchscreen display for the back. Having the screen pop out to the side made the long exposure and high res shots that I was doing a lot easier. The Panasonic S5 sports the same sensor as the S1, so we already know that the image quality is quite good with its 24.2 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor. The low light capabilities of this camera is really good as well. As you can see here, there's not a lot of noise in this image and it was shot at ISO 6400. The camera is capable of shooting between ISO 100 to 51,200. It is extendable from 50 and 204,800. One thing that makes the high ISO performance so good is that the camera features a dual native ISO. The camera features 2 individual circuits for each pixel, giving it the ability to have a native ISO of either 100 or 640 for normal use. However, depending on the shooting profile selected, the ISO of the circuits change. I really think that the high res shot mode is quite cool. When enabled, the camera takes 4 photos and does some magic to create a 96 megapixel image. The really nice part about this feature is that it outputs a JPEG and a RAW file. And as you can see here, the high res shot allows you to zoom in quite a bit more than the standard photo, which in turn should provide some more detail. Something that really surprised me is that the battery life on this camera is quite good. I took 239 images throughout the day, and quite a few of them were long exposures and high res modes. I also shot about 4 gigs worth of video, and the camera only lost 1 bar of battery. That's phenomenal, as it makes me believe that the SIPR rating of 440 to 470 shots for the camera might be a little low for real world scenarios. One thing to note is that this camera does take an all-new battery, the DMW BLK22. The Panasonic S5 has dual SD card slots, but only one of them is a UHS 2. And on the other side of the camera, it sports a dedicated microphone and headphone jack, HDMI, micro, and a USB-C port. I'm really glad to see manufacturers make the switch over to USB-C on all the new cameras. The benefit that it provides are so good. While I didn't have a chance to test it out, the camera does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. The Panasonic S5 shoots UHD 4K 60 in 10-bit 422, and that's in the APS-C crop mode. When taking advantage of the entire sensor, you still get 4K 30 10-bit 422, and you can shoot 60 frames per second in 1080 and 4K 30 with 8-bit color, and you no longer have to worry about shooting with a record time limit. You do get vlog straight in the camera without having to pay for an upgrade, which is nice. Panasonic normally charges a fee to unlock and update those in other camera bodies. The camera does feature IBIS, which I found to do quite a good job with both low shutter speeds and also handheld video shooting. The camera is good for up to 6.5 stops of shake when combining the 5-axis stabilization of the body and 2-axis lens stabilization. I think the biggest complaint most people are going to have with this camera is that it still uses a DFD autofocus, which is a contrast-based autofocus system. Sure, it's not the fancy phase detection that most other brands have adopted, but its 225 autofocus points still work really well. Panasonic did point something out that made a lot of sense. One of the reasons that Panasonic has continued to use DFD system is that it allows them to keep the area over the pixels free of anything not needed. Phase detection autofocus points are literally above the pixels of the sensor, so by keeping the area free, they believe it allows the pixels to gather color better. All in all, I really enjoyed my time shooting with the camera, and I felt like the shooting experience is one of the more important things when shooting, and I truly enjoyed shooting with this camera. If you want to pick up one of these cameras, hit the link down below in the description. They are available as a body only or in a kit with a 20 to 60mm lens. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop a comment down below and let us know if you have any questions. Well, my name is Adam, and I'll see you next time.